Hello and welcome to the training module on how to develop your employee wage rates and employee roster. To start this training module, you will first need to go to your web browser. The web browser that you should use for any ECMS work should be Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Firefox. What you should not use is Windows Explorer, as that browser is not supported by PennDOT. So here I am, I'm in this Edge browser. I will go to the search bar. I will type in ECMS homepage, hit enter. The first result at the top of the page here is ECMS homepage. I will click that. And this will take me to the login screen for the Engineering and Construction Management System, also known as ECMS. You should note that on the left-hand side of this page lists the PennDOT IT Service Desk telephone number, 717-783-8330, which is answered 24/7, and they are able to handle password resets and other minor issues. There is also an ECMS-specific help desk that's available to answer more technical questions, and that's available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Once you're at this screen, you will go over to the user ID box on the right-hand side, type in your user ID, and type in your password, and hit login. A drop-down box will appear, click OK, and this will take you into the first level within ECMS. So what we now need to do is go to the business partner section in the upper left-hand corner, put your cursor over the business partner, click that, and you will have a drop-down box. Scroll down and click consultants. Here you are in the consultant information portal. On the right-hand side, look for the area called support functions and drop down where it says create employee and click on create employee, and you will come to the employee screen. The employee screen is where you begin to build your roster, and you will start with your first employee that you want to put onto your team. Typically, most companies have multiple employees that they put on their roster. In other words, they develop their bench, and then you may not need every person on your bench for a particular project, but if the roster is built, i.e. the bench is established, then they are there ready to be utilized at a moment's notice. So the first thing you want to do is put in the employee number. Usually you start with 1, but you don't have to, but it's some systematic way. In this case, I will put in employee number 100. And then I will type in this person's name. This person, employee number 100, is Stephanie Curry. Once you type in the name and the employee number, you click Save. And now you have more information about this first employee. Middle of the screen, you'll see classification and rates in this middle section. It says no records found in red, and you will scroll over to the right and you will find the box that says new. Put your cursor over it and click the new box. Now we are in the employee rate sheet within ECMS for employee 100, Stephanie Curry. So there are several boxes. I will walk through each of these boxes. And before I start with any particular box, I want you to notice that some of the boxes are highlighted in yellow, and some of them are highlighted in white or have no highlighting. They are white. The boxes in yellow must be filled in. You do not have to complete those that are in white. So the first thing we want to do is to put in an hourly rate that you will seek approval from PennDOT for that hourly rate. Now, there are a couple of things to note here. First of all, your ECMS role must be either a principal or a financial officer to submit employee rates in ECMS. This hourly rate is the cost that is paid to the employee. It excludes any overhead and profit that the company will earn on that person. The overhead and profit will be handled in another training module. For now, we're trying to find the hourly rate for this particular person. So there are two ways to determine the hourly rate. The first is if the employee is paid on an hourly basis, then you would put in the rate that that employee gets paid. If that employee gets paid $25 an hour, then you would come into this box and put in $25 per hour. If, however, the employee is a salaried employee, this rate needs to be calculated. One way to calculate the hourly rate is to take the annual salary for this particular person and divide that yearly salary by a number of hours in a year that that person works. Typically, there are 2,080 hours in a given work year, which is 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, actually 5 days a week, and 52 weeks a year. And if you multiply 8 times 5 times 52, you will get 2,080 hours per year. So if this employee was earning a salary of $52,000 per year, you could divide $52,000 per year by 2,080 hours in a year, and that would yield $25 per hour. That is one way to do it. If the employee doesn't work a full schedule, then maybe you would divide by a smaller number of hours. In any event, the rate that you put in here is subject to approval by PennDOT. So no matter what you ultimately pay that particular person, the rate that you can charge PennDOT for their services is at the discretion of PennDOT. So once the hourly rate is put in, the next thing you need to enter is a job classification. So you hit the drop down arrow and you will see different job descriptions for this particular employee. If this person is, let's say, a project manager, you would click project manager and you are finished. If for some reason the job classification for this person is not listed in this drop-down box, you would click other, and then in the next category or the next classification, you would put their title. In this case, consultant. Again, you don't have to put this classification because the box is white, it's not yellow, but it would be helpful to put the title for that person if the title is not shown in the drop-down box above here. The next thing you need to do is put the effective start date for this person. This would have to be before the project starts. So this is when you would put this person on your team roster. The way to pick that is to go into this box, click on the calendar, find a date. In this case, I will scroll over to May and then May 1 and click on that, and it will populate May 1st, 2022. What isn't necessary is to put the effective end date, and I recommend you leave that end date blank, which is why, in fact, it is white. It does not need to be filled in. If you put an end date in there and the end date appears, then you will have to go through this whole process again once the effective end date is reached and go through this process a second time. So a way to avoid that is to just leave the effective end date blank. Next thing to know is you will have to click on this overtime box, and there's two options, exempt and non-exempt. If this employee is paid overtime for time above 40 hours per week or above some other standard, then you would click non-exempt. If the employee does not get paid overtime, then you would click exempt. So again, this depends on your particular business practice within your organization. So once again, if they are exempt, they do not get overtime. Next, you will need to upload a resume for this particular person. The reason a resume is required is PennDOT needs to approve the rate. So they will look at the resume, determine if the rate you propose is commensurate with the experience and qualifications of that particular person. In order to show that information, you will need to complete a resume. PennDOT does have a template that can be used by firms such as yours to identify and portray the information for that particular person. I will now click on and show you the template that can be used if you choose to do so. So here we have the template that can be used for resumes for PennDOT. I will provide a link to this template later in the video. In any event, the format is as follows. You would put the resume number or the employee number, and in this case for Stephanie Curry, it was employee 100. The name, Stephanie Curry, the title, whatever the title is that you selected previously. And you would list here then the primary responsibilities of that person. You would also fill in years of experience with your firm and with other firms. And then you would list the education and any degrees and the year that those degrees were earned and any particular specialization for that employee. The other thing that you will add is if there are other certifications that that person had, if he's a professional engineer, or if this person is a certified public accountant, or some other certification, you could list that here if appropriate. Finally, you would want to list other experience and qualifications, and that might be other similar projects that that person worked on, other jobs prior to working for your particular firm, etc. But you should go and be as thorough as possible and spill this description onto a second or third page if necessary. Again, what you're trying to do is to show PennDOT that this person is qualified to do work and is entitled to the hourly rate that you propose. Once you've completed this template, you will need to save this file as a PDF. And then I will now show you how to upload the PDF into ECMS. So now I'm back with the ECMS system. And again, under the resume box, you will click Choose File. That will take you to the File Explorer and will help you navigate within your computer where you just saved the resume in a PDF format. So once you click through the screen to find the location, you would then click Upload File, and that PDF will be uploaded into ECMS. Now, as you can see over on the right-hand side here, the status is draft. Okay, now the one thing to remember is that the hourly rate that you propose may or may not be accepted by PennDOT. I will show you now how to submit this rate to PennDOT for their approval. However, please note that it is an iterative process such that PennDOT may reject your proposed rate and then ask you to resubmit a lower rate for another review and approval cycle. Do not be alarmed by this back and forth nature with PennDOT over the approved rate. This is a commonly found mechanism, and it's just part of the process. When all this information is entered and you've uploaded your PDF resume file, you would go up to this line item and click Save. Once you click Save, you will see it says the information was saved successfully, and that informs you that the system has saved your data for this particular person. At this point, if the information is accurate, what you would need to do then is to go to Workflow, click on Workflow, and then you would see a Submit button. And you would submit this information by clicking this button. When you hit the Submit button, you will immediately see to the right under the status bar, the status will change from draft to pending. That indicates that the ball is now in PennDOT's court to review. You should expect PennDOT to take approximately 1 to 2 weeks to review and approve or reject the proposed hourly rate. Do not be alarmed if it takes a little longer. It really depends on how busy PennDOT is with the similar types of approvals requested by other parties. Whether PennDOT approves this rate or rejects this rate, you will not receive a notification regarding their decision. What you will need to do is to click back into ECMS and click back to the screen, and it will see the status will tell you rejected or approved. So you will need to take it upon yourself to check back in after a week or two, go through the exact same screens that I walked through earlier and get to this employee rate screen and look at the status. If it's rejected, you will need to submit a lower rate, as I previously said, and resubmit the information using the Workflow button. Ultimately, PennDOT will approve a rate. Once the rate is approved, then you can proceed to the next part of the whole registration process, which is submitting a cost proposal for a particular work scope. As I said earlier, you will likely need to submit several employees and get each employee approved. Each employee needs to be treated independently. In other words, you would complete the information on one, like Stephanie Curry in this example, submit it through the Workflow button, send it to PennDOT, and then work on the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. Ideally, you'd want to have a number of people approved for your employee roster, because at the time the work begins, 1 or 2 of those employees may be on another project and might not be available for the PennDOT project. So you might have to go to your 3rd or 4th person on your bench. So again, the idea is to develop and get approval for a variety of your employees to give you maximum flexibility. To check the status of your employee roster at any time, you would, from this screen, click the back button, click it a second time, and this will tell you a list of your inactive employees, which means They will be on this list if they have not yet been approved. If you go over to this area of this screen and click on under the active button and click on all, this would list all of your employees that are active. So once your employee, once their rate is approved, then that person will be listed under the active employees. Another way to get to the same area is where we started way back at the beginning under the consult information portal, and you can come down on the left-hand side and you will see employee roster, and you can click on employee roster and you will see who is currently approved, and the rates that are approved for those individuals are listed under the current rate amount. So that concludes the training session for how to develop your employee roster and wage rates. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.